It's time for the Daily Planet podcast show. So sit back, relax, and give us a go. Scott and Matt and maybe a guest have undertaken an epic pod quest. We're gonna ramble on about movies and books and television and directors and film festivals and this really long list of stuff that I know nothing about, but they gave it to me and they really wanted me to read through it. And that's all I can really say about it, but it's gonna be great. Okay, start the show.
Hello and welcome to the Daily Planet Podcast, your weekly podcast for all things movies, TV, books, and anything else we feel like talking about. My name is Scott Daly and I'm your host, and I am joined, as always, by my co-host, Matt Freeman. Matt, it's been a while since we just did the normal Daily Planet Podcast.
Yeah, we've been trying out a lot of different formats, so it's actually kind of nice to get back to our roots, something that we've kind of honed, I like to think, and just kind of talk about a topic that we wanted to talk about. Yeah,
we're not talking about a specific movie this time, good or bad. We're just talking about comic books, which seems to be our old standard comic book movies. We're here to talk about the state of the DC expanded universe, which is what the DC version of the MCU. Suicide Squad is coming out in 2 days from tonight, so we just thought it'd be a good time to step back and look at their universe as a whole and how it's going. We are joined by our only DC fan, the one we turn to every time we need someone to talk good about the DC universe.
DC apologist.
There we go. Daniel Freeman. Daniel, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me once again, and I'm always ready to defend the best superhero franchise.
Oh, Jesus. So, Daniel, you liked Batman vs. Superman. You're one of the 6 people in the world.
Yes, it was a great and perfect movie.
Oh, perfect. That's bold. So yeah, we will get into the DC universe and we will get into Batman vs. Superman because I watched the Ultimate Edition, I think is what they called it, the rated R 30-minute longer cut. I somehow forced myself to sit down and watch that. So we'll get into all that. But before we do that, Matt, we've got some news items because we haven't talked news in a while. Unfortunately, I want to keep it current. So although there's just some stories we missed, but
all right,
I've selected some good things that I know you will enjoy.
Let's get to it.
The first is, Matt, The Rocketeer is getting rebooted,
and this makes me so happy. I think it makes me happy. I love the whole. I think so many people don't even know about the Rocketeer movie. Like I've mentioned it in various company, and people will just be like, "Never heard of it." But Daniel and I love this movie. This reminds me of the guy who composed the theme for the movie. What was his name?
I don't know.
It's sort of undercutting my story that I don't know that. but you know, someone told me like, oh, this great movie composer so and so passed away, and I was like, oh, that's sad. And then I was reading the list of things he'd composed, and one of them was the Rocketeer theme, and then I was like, no. It just like hit me a lot harder knowing that it was this guy who made this like theme that really affects me. But I love those movies, and the whole idea of the Rocketeer I think is really charming. Hopefully they reboot it and have it be Nazis versus mobsters again.
Well, they're doing it's not like a fresh reboot. It's a kind of a legacy sequel, I guess is what they're calling them these days. So it takes place in the 50s. It takes place, I think, 8 years after the end of the last movie. And the original Rocketeer, whose name I can't remember because I saw this movie once, like a dozen years ago, is missing, and a new person dons the outfit to go looking for them. A new person who is a black woman, which is one thing they're pushing, which I think is great because, first of all, we need more people of color and women as leads in movies, and I think this is a good movie to do it in. I'm excited. I'm not sure who is attached to direct or anything like that, but I'm excited it exists, I guess. I liked this movie a lot too, though I don't think as much as you guys did, but...
yeah, I kind of only remember it through like the haze of childhood, and only really remember a guy in a really awesome kickin' rad rocket suit fighting Nazis, which is really all it needs to be for me to like it. So
yeah, it's kind of funny because they kind of are trying to show off how awesome the like him flying around special effects are, and of course they're not awesome at all by today's standards. So kind of have to forgive it a few things.
Yeah, and I hope the one thing I hope they don't do is try to like update the suit or the helmet. Like that's awesome. It's great look. It looked great in the 90s, and I think it would look great today. So leave that the way it is.
Yeah, it's that great like retro futuristic look.
Yeah.
Just perfect.
Yeah. So that's exciting. I have no idea when that's coming out. I think they just announced it, so it's going to be a few years, but it's one of those reboots I'm actually excited about, so that's cool. The other thing I wanted to talk to you guys about is Harry Potter, because Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, the script for the new play, came out over the weekend. Have either of you guys read it yet?
I have not.
No, I didn't even realize that it was going to be released as like a book, because I'm suddenly looking on Facebook and seeing all these people with the book version. Have you read it?
I'm like a third of the way through it. I mean, it's a script, so it's not a book. Some of the dialogue I don't think works because it's not meant to be read; it's meant to be listened to. But it's interesting. I've heard people have very mixed opinions on this. Some people say it's like fan fiction. Some people say it's good and captures the core of what Harry Potter was. I don't know. But the news item for this was that J.K. Rowling, how do you pronounce her last name?
I think it's...
Nobody knows.
I don't know, actually.
Well, she says that she's done with Harry Potter. After not the Wizarding World, of course, just the character of Harry Potter. His story is done after this. So
that's good.
Yeah. I mean, I'm excited. Like, I think it's a cool world with a lot of possibilities in it. I'm excited for the new series of movies. I think it's only a matter of time before she writes another full-fledged novel that exists in the universe. She seems like she's been ramping up towards it, but I am perfectly fine with them going away from Harry Potter story.
Yeah, I'd like to see her try different things. I mean, I've ranted elsewhere that I don't find the Harry Potter world to be particularly coherent. Like the first books, I've made this argument elsewhere, but again, the first books were sort of like Roald Dahl, where they were whimsical, and you forgave them a lot of ridiculousness because they were supposed to be sort of whimsical and ridiculous, and then they became extremely grim and dark and violent, while maintaining a lot of the same ridiculous things that had been in the previous books, and it just started to feel silly in a bad way rather than in an enjoyable way. This is just my opinion, obviously. So I don't know why you would want to like shackle yourself to this universe that she obviously just sort of grew by accretion over the course of many years.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can do interesting things with it as long as, I mean, don't expand the rules to the level of like Star Wars prequels where we're explaining everything, but I think there's it's just a world ripe for storytelling, I think. So I want it to move away. I will say that the one thing that I think the play is doing that's very interesting is it's kind of talking about what it means to be the child of the most famous person in the world, and what it means as a parent when you don't know how to handle your kid not being like you. And I think that's an interesting place to take it.
Yeah.
But then they're also doing stuff with time turners, and I feel like that's a direct response to all the questioning about what time turners mean for this universe, which I don't like as much. But
yeah, well, clearly you're right, and I'm wrong that this universe is ripe for storytelling due to all the trillions of pages of fan fiction that exist.
Yeah, I don't know. I have conflicting opinions on fan fiction. I don't think the existence of fan fiction means something's ripe for storytelling. People are going to make fan fiction for anything and everything.
I think I counted one time, and it's something like 5% of the volume of the Library of Congress could be Harry Potter fan fiction.
That's insane. That's ridiculous. Whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, but Harry Potter's done. But there was an article that came out last week that was just the worst kind of thing. A millennial writing about how J.K. Rowling needs to stop because it's ruining her childhood every time she writes more in this world. And I just want to be like, I am so sick of you're ruining my childhood arguments. And now it's happening to Harry Potter too. And I'm just like, oh my god, fans are the worst.
Yeah. I can't wait till we have AIs that can filter things like that, so that I never have to find out about them.
To be charitable, it's like Harry Potter was singularly like very transformative for many people's childhoods, because like for people my age, like we were exactly the same age as the kids as the books were coming out and as the movies were coming out. So it was like these are our people, except they're wizards. So you can have very strong emotional responses to these sorts of things. I'm not one of these people.
Yeah,
but I know many of them.
So this isn't for you. This is for a new generation. Like
the it's not for you argument.
Not everything has to be catered to your individual. I don't know.
No, I see where you're going.
Yeah. So that's that. I just wanted to say something real quick. This is something that came out of ComicCon 2 weeks ago now, almost. Brie Larson is Captain Marvel in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I think this was something that was heavily hinted at, but they confirmed it that past weekend. There was a bunch of other Marvel announcements, but not a lot of footage actually shown.
Can we talk about how there's also a Captain Marvel in the DC universe, and that this confuses me a lot?
Well, is it Brie Larson? Because if it's not Brie Larson, I don't care.
No. So, but just like in terms of like comic books, I only was ever aware of a Captain Marvel within the DC universe. And was it like they made that to try and like steal readers from DC or from Marvel, and then Marvel was like, no, it's ours, and then they made their own competing Captain Marvel, and then now it just is really confusing? Or is it? I don't actually know who Captain Marvel is. Is what I'm getting at.
I mean, this sounds like something both companies would do.
Yes.
The Captain Marvel in the Marvel universe is a test pilot for fighter jets, and she gets alien superpowers and is just a general badass. She's great. And in the current run of Civil War II, instead of Iron Man versus Captain America, it's this time Iron Man and Captain Marvel are having a disagreement and leading to this huge civil war again. Because that's what comic books do. They recycle stories. But I don't know. I'm excited. I think the cool thing that I think Marvel has gotten to such a point now where anyone who is famous in Hollywood is going to be in a Marvel movie at some point, because there's so many of them, and they can basically, who they want to get for a role, they basically have the pull to get them now, which is kind of cool. I mean, the Black Panther movie has an incredible lineup. I'm ridiculously excited for that movie, and I love Brie Larson, and I think she's going to do a great job here too. So, that's all I had for news. Does anyone else have any other news items they want to discuss before we move on to our main event?
No.
I saw a pre-screening of Kubo and the Two Strings.
Cool.
And it was freaking amazing, and everyone should go see it.
I am excited about that because I love that anime. That's Laiko. Is that how you pronounce?
Laika, yeah.
Laika, yeah. That's the stop motion animation. They did Coraline. They did Paranorman and
Box
Trolls. Yeah.
Yes.
They are incredible. I have just like a huge amount of respect for stop motion animation. Like, I love watching it. It's incredible. And that movie looks good.
It's like, it's even more than usual. I like, you're watching the movie and you're just like, how did they make it look like that? And it's so if you're going to see it, make sure and stay for the credits, because they actually do kind of, it's sort of a behind the scenes, but it's like it's a sped up version of people posing one of the puppets like while they're doing the filming of the movie. So it's just like kind of behind the scenes footage, but done really fast, and that's really cool to watch. So stay for the credits.
Awesome. Yeah, that's it. I'm glad you brought that up, because it's one of those movies that I don't think very many people are going to see, which is a shame, because I love that studio's work, and people. So it's good. You like it? Okay.
Yes, it was very good.
Well, I will make sure I am there. When does it come out? Is it next weekend?
I think it's like August 19th or something weird like that.
Right. Why is that weird?
2-ish weeks. 2.5 weeks. Yes.
Cool.
Yes.
All right. So let's move on to me bashing DC for 30 minutes then.
Sounds good.
No, what I wanted to do here, because I think DC is kind of at a crossroads, and Batman vs. Superman, whether you liked it or not, did not perform very well for them. I think it made $875 million, which sounds like a lot, but I think that barely broke even, or if it even did break even for them. So for a movie with two of the most recognizable characters in the world to not make the $1 billion mark is a huge deal for them. So we're kind of in a place where the Suicide Squad movie that comes out in a couple of days is now way more important than it was supposed to be. This was supposed to be just like a little kind of fun side project that showcased some of the more interesting DC characters, but now it's like the whole extended universe is kind of hanging on this movie, which I've read needs to make $750 million to break even, which that's really tough. I don't know if this movie can do this, especially with the bad reviews it's getting. So I wanted to get y'all's like general. I mean, Matt, I know you haven't seen Batman versus Superman, and we'll talk about the Ultimate Edition here in a bit. But what do you think? I mean, is DC just, did they have the wrong approach? What do you think they're doing wrong?
Yeah, I mean, I think that they're doing most things wrong. Like they're targeting the wrong market and they're advertising wrong. I mean, that's almost all you have to say to answer why did their movie not make as much money as they wanted it to make. It's like, well, they didn't advertise it so that people would be dying to see it, and then the people who did see it didn't have much good to say about it. So you're not aiming at the right people, and then the people who you are drawing in, you're not entertaining successfully. And like in order to make a movie that's going to make $1 billion, you have to just make that movie one extremely enjoyable. You have to make it the kind of thing that people are going to go and say, "Wow, this was really fun and enjoyable and a great time." And if you take your girlfriend or your kids or or whatever, you're going to have a great time. That's how you make a movie that makes $1 billion. You don't make like a weird sort of internal dark movie that ends sadly and then advertise it as a dark, sad, gray, dreary, just like violent mess. Like even Deadpool is rated R, and it made a huge amount of money exactly because everyone who saw it was like, this was just so fun. And that's a movie that you absolutely can't take your kids to, you know, and it still made way more money than Batman versus Superman, and it was not advertised as intensively either. So
yeah,
I just think they're not like, if their goal is to make money, they're not making the right kind of movies. It would be like if you know, if you wanted to make a popular, you know, car or something, and then you went about making a really weird kind of car that only certain people would like, and then you get surprised when nobody likes your bizarre, you know, vegetable oil powered hatchback. It's like, make a correct mainstream product if you want to receive money. I don't know. That's my full analysis.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think the danger here is that we just decide that in order to make $1 billion in the comic book movie universe, you have to copy Marvel, and I think that's the wrong lesson to take from it. Because I think actually, Suicide Squad is a movie that on the surface, and again I haven't seen it, but on the surface it seemed like it was going after the same kind of tone and attitude that Guardians of the Galaxy, for example, went after. And I think with the negative reaction to this movie, it kind of seems like just copying a formula isn't enough. There's something that Marvel does in their movies that makes people like them, and I like that DC is going for like a different kind of style and a different kind of aesthetic. I don't think it should be completely washed of fun and be dreary and terrible like Batman vs Superman was, but these are fun characters. They're kids characters to a certain level, and I think they don't want to be afraid of having fun with them, and it seems like the movies so far have not wanted to do that. So I agree with you. I mean, it has to appeal to the greatest common denominator if you want to be super successful in this industry.
And I mean, I would even argue that like the Justice League cartoons did this perfectly well. Like, and they're also distinct from the tone of Marvel. And for some reason, they're not making their movies like the Justice League cartoons, and I don't understand why. But I still like them, but I also understand why they're not wildly commercially successful, because they're like niche philosophical on the nature of a Superman sorts of movies, instead of being like just awesome Robert Downey Jr. excuses to watch.
And I think the short answer for why they're not making those type of movies is because they hired Zack Snyder to make their movies, and that's not the type of film that man is interested in making. He likes to deconstruct superheroes. I mean, Watchmen was his passion project, so he doesn't want to make your super fun type of superhero movie, which is hilarious because he's making Justice League, and that's one of the things I did want to talk about, because ComicCon was a couple weeks ago, and we did get to see the first look at what Justice League is going to look like. It looks like they're trying to showcase that it has fun parts in it. Every scene that they've shown, the scene between Batman and Flash, and the scene between Batman and Aquaman, seem to kind of indicate that they're pushing the fun more. I hope they don't like go overboard with it, and I hope they don't just try to carbon copy Marvel. There's still moments of Snyder isms in this scene they showed. I think Jason Momoa as Aquaman drinking like downing whiskey, I think it was, like in the rain, was one of those ridiculous moments.
Well, my concern with that trailer is that they have some like classic rock, some like really upbeat song playing over the trailer, which is sort of the same weird thing they did with Suicide Squad, where they're like, let's make sure no one can understand what tone these scenes actually have by just smearing over all of the scenes with an upbeat classic rock song, or an upbeat song of some kind that's popular that people have positive associations with. Because like the Batman versus Jason Momoa sort of, interactions in that trailer, if you didn't have that music going over them, you could read them as like really, really self-serious and just an utter drag. So I hope you're right, and I hope they do make it like fun and like high energy rather than brooding, because this is the same Batman from Batman versus Superman, and you guys tell me that is a very brooding Batman. So unless they're really, really changing the direction they're taking with this same Batman played by the same actor, I'll be surprised if they pull that off.
Well, they also sort of the kind of the result of Batman versus Superman is that Batman chills out a lot. So
yeah, that's kind of his arc. He's arcing away from that brooding, depressed, mildly alcoholic Batman.
But they might pivot too far and then just do Marvel, which would be a shame.
And I want Batman to be like the brooding, overly dramatic member of the Justice League, and I want everyone else to be bouncing off and playing off of that. Especially Ezra Miller's Flash, which that was my favorite part of the trailer, the Comic-Con trailer, was his character. He looks great. His costume looks a little goofy, but I just love how he's playing the character and what we've seen so far. And from they did a bunch of set visits. Like they basically hand selected all the critics who really ragged on Batman vs Superman and flew them out to London to Pinewood Studios to show them what they were doing with Justice League, because they were trying to convert them. And from everyone that's gone to that, they've seen more Flash scenes than we've seen, and they say he's going to steal the movie because he's fun and great. So I like the idea of not every character being like quippy and stuff like that, but if you just have one or two goofy characters that's playing off of the rest, I think that could work really well.
Yeah. I mean, and I think they sort of are trying to do that in Suicide Squad, though I haven't seen that obviously, but they've got kind of an ensemble there, and they have Harley Quinn. That character is always in whatever media she's in, sort of joking and making light of everything that's happening. And then you have Will Smith, who's going to bring his star power. That's the most interesting element that I see about this, about Suicide Squad, is that they got Will Smith. They got him to play, quote, a bad guy, even though, like, I'm sure he's going to be one of these anti-heroes where he's like, I'm only a bad guy because the world is bad or something. and it has potential to actually be fun. And I've heard good things about the acting and the kind of the characters in the movie.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing is like, I mean, Suicide Squad and even Wonder Woman to a certain extent, which we'll get to in a minute, were really too far along in the production when Batman vs Superman came out that we're not going to see any really DC pivot on any of this stuff until after those movies. So part of me wonders, and I know like people that have seen the film have said it was fun, but I feel like the trailers overplayed the funness of it. Like you were saying, like they put catchy music in there and make it look more fun and chill than it is, just to play up on that because that was their response to people not liking Batman vs Superman. So Justice League is probably going to be the first film that we see DC's course correction based off of the quote unquote failure of the previous movies. But yeah, let's talk Wonder Woman for a second because I love this trailer that came out at San Diego Comic-Con. I loved it. I have never really been interested in Wonder Woman as a character. I don't really know much about her outside of what I've seen in Justice League cartoons and the like. But I don't know. There's something about this trailer that I just really liked. It is going to be serious. It's set during World War I, but I don't know. I liked Gal Gadot in the role in Batman vs Superman. I like Chris Pine as her sidekick here. I like the aesthetic. I like how the suit looks. I like the action. Looks pretty great. So I'm excited about this movie. I really am.
Yeah. I guess I'm tentatively excited. I didn't have the same reaction to you as you to the trailer. But I guess I'm sort of suspending judgment because I don't know. I'm in this weird position where I still haven't even seen Batman vs Superman. So
you probably don't need to.
This could all just like be, think about how we think about the Batman, the old Batman movies now, how it's like there were the Tim Burton ones. The first one was great. The second one was bizarre. And then every subsequent Batman movie was just increasingly ridiculous. And at the time, imagine if we were making a podcast back then, we would be like, oh, there's a chance they could change the direction because they got a new director and they got a new Batman. And they're really trying to change people's attitudes about it. It's just like completely drove it into the ground and had to save it with Chris Nolan years and years later. So we could be watching that again, or we could be watching them, pivoting to become something successful the way Marvel's doing.
Yeah, I guess you're right. The fear is that they over pivot, and I mean, studios are pretty famous for not fully understanding what it is that people like about things. One of the Suicide Squad reviews I read said it really felt like the movie was at war between what the director David Ayer wanted to do and what the studio was mandating, which they felt seemed like be more like Marvel, and that creates kind of an internal conflict within the film itself, and it shows up in the final product. So yeah, I mean, there's always a fear that this course correction will go too far a different direction, or will just go into ridiculous territory and lose what was unique about the properties in the first place. That's very true. I don't get that from this trailer, but again, it's marketing that's specifically designed to elicit a certain reaction, so it doesn't necessarily mean anything.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just eager to see how all this turns out, I guess.
Yeah, I think, and that's kind of why I wanted to do this, because we're on the eve of this new movie, and then Warner Brothers and DC's plans going forward. I mean, DC's as a company is in a real transition right now. They've rebooted their comics universe to take it out of, because the comics were reflecting the movies in that they were much more self-serious and dark, and they've started to move away from that and go back to the more Silver Age type comics. So I don't know. It's an interesting time, and it's tough to tell from these trailers, but I feel excited for DC movies, which I was never excited for Batman vs Superman from the first moment I heard of the idea. So that's something, I guess.
Yeah,
I'm willing to give them a lot more time to kind of figure out what voice they want to have, because trying to compare with Marvel, it's like at this stage of the establishment of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, there was Iron Man and
Hulk.
The Hulk, yeah. And so I am cautiously optimistic.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it's gonna be interesting. I'm still excited to see Suicide Squad. I think even with the bad reviews, I think I'm going to find something to enjoy in that film. Whether it's just Margot Robbie and Will Smith and Jai Courtney. I know I'm going to hate Jared Leto's Joker performance. I knew that from the first moment I saw what he looked like, but that doesn't surprise me at all. The only other thing I wanted to touch on DC wise before we get into the Ultimate Edition of Batman vs Superman was the Killing Joke movie came out. I haven't seen this, and I'm not going to see it because I did not like that comic, and I think that comic is directly responsible for the dark, gritty, self-serious version of DC properties we have now. Have either of you read that comic, or do you know generally what it's about?
I've not read it, but I've read a lot about it and how it's very grimdark.
Yeah,
I'm familiar with the ideas. It's it sounds just like it was meant to be like shocking, and then but when you take something that's supposed to be shocking and then you just smash it in people's faces over and over again as like the new norm, it's not shocking. It's just indulgent.
Yeah. Well, spoilers for those people who haven't read it, you probably won't. But in the Killing Joke comic, Joker basically shoots and paralyzes Batgirl, Barbara Gordon, and it's never explicitly stated, but it's heavily implied that he sexually assaults her too during this whole event. So they decided they'd make a rated R cartoon out of that, because that's what we need more of, is rated R Batman cartoons. But I don't know if you guys have read this, the thing that they added to the cartoon, which is a sex scene between Batgirl and Batman.
Oh my god.
Is
what?
So first of all, I mean, we can break this down in a million different ways why this is a terrible idea. But first of all, having in the same story in which she's brutally sexually assaulted by the Joker, you have her previously engaged in sex with Batman. So almost as if what happens to her by the hand of the Joker is a direct response to punishing her for having sex. But past all that, the whole idea of Batman was that he was a father figure to these kids that he suited up and joined him at night. So,
right.
So
wasn't she like decades younger than him?
Yeah, she's the daughter of his best friend, Commissioner Gordon.
So, okay, didn't the original comic come out in like the 80s or something?
I believe so, yeah.
So it was at the time like super shocking, and it was trying to like it was actually before Watchmen, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
So like it was very much like trying to make a statement in the comics universe. So I can only guess that they thought that it wasn't shocking anymore because it has caused everything to be the way it is now, and that they had to do this to make it shocking again.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's kind of like how now Jamie and Cersei is not shocking anymore. So you have to make up new weird things like Zombie Mountain sexually assaulting a nun.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, and I guess that's the only argument you can make. But the other problem with this is, first of all, they released this movie in theaters for like a one-day engagement type thing, and the voices of the characters are the voices from the Batman animated series. So it adds a bit of legitimacy to it. So it's now like canon that Batman and Batgirl had sex, which is just insane. Like it's like it's insane. I can't even. When I first read it, and then like I think they did a showing at ComicCon, and then someone leaked like a video of the actual scene as it's happening, and it's just like, what the fuck are you doing?
I don't know how to respond.
It's just so like vacuously edgy. Like it
Right.
just doesn't do anything.
Yeah,
It only makes it worse.
Yeah.
That's all it does.
And it cheapens the whole universe when you do things like that. When you're like, look, you very carefully build these expanded universes, or whatever word you're going to use, where you keep everything consistent, and then you just do something that is completely contrary to how you've set things up to be. All you do is you cheapen the expanded universe that you built.
Yep. Yeah, I will never see this cartoon. I wasn't interested in it before I knew of the scene, and I'm even less so now. So I don't know. There's probably some people out there that loved this thing and loved the edgy darkness of what they did with it. I think it's nonsense.
So edgy.
Yeah, it's nonsense. So anyway, moving away from one terrible Batman story and on to another terrible Batman story. Matt, I watched the Ultimate Edition of Batman vs Superman: Dawn of Justice for the listeners. I did this for the listeners, and I want to tell you something. You can't rent this thing. You have to buy it. So now I own a copy of the Ultimate Edition of Batman vs Superman: Dawn of Justice.
Well, hopefully you can find some way of destroying it, maybe on film, and we can.
You could give it to me. I haven't seen it.
I might actually do that. I don't want this thing in my house. So this is the rated R 30-minute extended edition, Zack Snyder's true vision of the film. My feelings on this are mixed. I think, in simplest terms, it is better than the theatrical version, in that there are some really stupid plot points in the original film that are fleshed out, and they start to make some semblance of sense. Some of this is stuff we talked about on the podcast. There's a scene very early in the movie where Lois Lane is brought out to the middle of the desert, and a bunch of people in the town are shot by some mercenaries, and then they frame Superman for doing it. And that scene made no sense, because if Superman's going to kill people, he's not going to use guns to do it. Well, in the extended edition, they show that the mercenaries that kill all these people burned them to death with flamethrowers, so it kind of made sense. Oh, he used his laser vision on them. That's like a 30-second ad that I don't understand why they cut from the finished film. It makes no sense. Like, just throw that in and it's fine. There's a lot more scenes with Lois Lane researching the bullet, and it still doesn't really go anywhere. Like, she figures out the entire plot and realizes that it was all Lex Luthor, but none of that matters because she doesn't do anything with that information. There's Jenna Maloney's in this movie, and she's there to just help Lois with her investigation, and then tell Lois that the wheelchair that exploded in the Senate was lead-lined, which is why Superman couldn't see the explosion, which again is an explanation I don't think you really need.
So I don't like that, actually, because I liked it more that Superman was felt so responsible that he couldn't bear to look at the guy. That's way more thematically correct. That totally cheapens the whole thing.
Yeah, well,
I am disappointed.
Most importantly, that information is never revealed to Superman, so he never even knows that. So, I mean, he continues to blame himself, which is fine because he's a mopey asshole. They also reveal that the criminals that are dying in prison that have the Batman brand on them, Lex Luthor is hiring people to kill them, I guess to piss off Superman. But that doesn't make any sense, because if he's going to kidnap Martha to make Superman fight Batman, why does he need to piss him off in the first place? This movie doesn't make any sense. And adding...
It's sort of like how in Watchmen they're doing psychological warfare on Dr. Manhattan the whole movie.
Okay.
That's what I'm going to go with.
Okay. Well,
that's what I choose to believe.
So, bottom line is, adding 30 minutes to this movie didn't fix the big problems with it at all. It closed some of the bigger plot holes that didn't make any sense, but the third act of the movie is still absolutely terrible. There is a scene when Clark calls up his mother and asks her why his dad didn't ever leave Kansas, and the answer to that question is because Clark Kent let him die in a tornado. So I don't know why he's asking. So I am disappointed. I don't know why I'm disappointed. I thought there would be more stuff that would, because I kept reading about how it was a much better version. I think it is by default a better version because it explains things, but it's not even close to being what I would consider a good movie still.
Did it have more scenes with the what's his face, the alien guy that Lex Luthor is talking to briefly?
It had one scene, and it was the scene they released on the internet the day after the movie came out. I think it's supposed to be Steppenwolf, who's the main bad guy of Justice League. So it's one scene where he's holding up two of the cubes, and Luthor's not talking to him. He's just it's just a scene that kind of telegraphs that he's been under Luthor's been under his control the entire time, which is the only way they make the third act of the film make any sense at all, because it doesn't. I was really hoping that they just cut Doomsday out of this movie entirely, and that's what the Ultimate Edition was, but
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it did not happen.
Okay.
But you know,
Sounds much better.
yeah, it wasn't. It's still a bad movie. Lois Lane still has nothing to do. They still kill Jimmy Olsen at the beginning for no reason. Although this time they actually take the time to tell you he's Jimmy Olsen.
Oh, the camera guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like it's just nonsense. And like I couldn't like. It's been a while since I've seen the film, so I didn't remember. Some of the new scenes stood out to me, but some of them could have just been like small additions to different things. I honestly can't for the life of me tell you why this is a rated R movie. There's like one scene where Batman throws a guy into a wall and like blood smears down the wall because he definitely just killed a man. But I don't, I like no one like there's not like a bunch of bloody violence. There's not like additional cussing or anything. The bathtub scene with Lois Lane gets as close to showing her boobs as possible, but doesn't actually do it. So I don't know why this is rated R, other than so you could say we have a rated R edgy cut. I don't know, but I would. It's long. It's half an hour longer in a movie that already felt really long, and I will never watch this movie again. I did it this one time, and I'm done.
Does it have more moments though?
It has, and yes, by default, it has more moments because there are extra scenes, and that's Matt. I know you haven't seen this movie, but you've seen other Snyder movies, and there was a Nerd Writer video that came out I think last week or the week before, talking about Snyder and what the author thought his main problems with Snyder were, which is that he cares more about moments in his movies than in scenes. So he'll bend over backwards to construct everything to make these like awe-dropping moments, but nothing ties together, nothing flows through the story or arc in any kind of convincing and believable way. And I think the best example is 300, of course, which is literally just a movie of moments, and that's all it is. But it works there to a certain extent. But none of his other films it really works. And I was paying attention to that when I watched this again this time, and it's absolutely true that the story moves out of the way to get these wonderful moments that don't matter or don't tie into thematically what's trying to go on. It's a bad script, guys. It's a bad script.
Yeah, I feel like Snyder is trying to make like comic book panels come to life, without really regard for context. I think that's why 300 is a perfect example, because so many of the awesome, striking visuals from that are taken directly from the comic book. But the fact is, they're trying to bring all this bombast to something that is just a picture.
So why and I agree, and I think it works in 300. But why do you think it works in 300 and just does not work in these films? Is it just because 300 is such a simple film that it doesn't matter? Like there's really no story to 300. It's 300 guys against a big army, and then that's it. So it's not trying to say anything really specific or complicated.
I think 300 works where 300 is allowed to be a cartoon, and 300 stops working where it tries to be a real movie. Like the parts with Lena Headey are super weird, and like not they're even really weirdly shot in terms of close-ups and stuff that don't make sense. Whereas all of the parts where they're having their epic battle are super stylized and exaggerated, and you're sort of aware that you're living in this cartoon universe, this exaggerated universe. Like I like the interpretation that you're not actually watching these things; you're watching the story that the surviving Spartan is telling, and he's exaggerating everything because he's trying to psych up his fellows. Like that makes perfect sense for that movie, and all the scenes that try to humanize everyone don't make any sense. And this is like a perfect microcosm of Snyder, because when he's dealing with like the elemental ubermensch of Superman and Batman, it sort of is cool and awesome. But then when he tries to weave it into a coherent story, he can't, because you can't have it both ways.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right.
And I think this is why I don't hate it as much, because like I'm willing to like forgive a lot in a movie if I enjoy the moments of the movie. So like I was thinking, why do I like this movie, which has a pretty bad story, and but I don't like the Fantastic Four reboot, which similarly had a really awful story, and it's because the Fantastic Four reboot had nothing going for it. It had no cool moments. It was terribly shot. The story also made completely no sense at all, even less sense than Batman versus Superman, and it was just awful. But like, moments are pretty cool, and yeah, I'm willing to forgive a lot, I guess.
That's fair. I mean, you're wrong, but
I mean, it would be better. Like, I think I mentioned this last time we talked about, DC versus Marvel and all that stuff, that if they just like hired a team of writers to like actually carve out a story that's good, like a Netflix series we might be talking about soon, that can like hold on its own just as a story with like beats where one thing happens and then another thing happens and it's paced wonderfully, and then stitch really cool moments into that, or even just start with cool moments and hire a team of writers to like stitch a coherent story that like connects you from moment to moment. That doesn't seem hard. I don't know, if you have like $1 billion to spend on a movie, I don't understand why you can't do that. But
it's just not a priority for these tentpole movies. I saw a great set of tweets from a producer on Twitter today that talking about that studios are convinced that development can happen in the middle of production instead of in pre-production. Like, I'm working on a film right now. I mean, it's a 13-minute short film, but we pounded out the script, we made revisions to the script, we storyboarded the entire thing, and we've planned every shot, and we haven't even started production yet. And I mean, that's the kind of thing that needs to go on, but doesn't in these big tentpole movies, because either they don't care or they think that it's going to bring them money no matter what. So why spend your resources on that kind of stuff? I don't know.
I mean, I know like this they spend a ton of effort working on stories in the animated industry, like Disney, Pixar movies and stuff, and they try and have everything figured out way ahead of time because it takes a whole lot longer to actually like construct a scene, and they still end up having to do like reworkings of story and stuff. So like I can understand some amount of that, even if you're planning far ahead, but some of the movies that come out just don't make any sense. They don't.
Yeah. I mean, telling a good story is hard. It is, and not only creating the good story, but finding the best way to show it to people is difficult. So I mean, I'm not like, I don't want to intentionally bash them and say, oh, if you just spent like an extra day pounding out the story, you would have made something good. But I just think it's not a priority, and it really needs to be. Yeah, I don't know. Snyder doesn't care about the story, though. He cares about moments. So when you have a director leading your ship that doesn't care about that.
So I would be okay if they and you would probably be okay if they only allowed Snyder to direct adaptations, and then everything would be great.
Yes, I think that's fine, because I think he has cinematic flourish, although I still think that this movie is very strangely shot and paced and edited. Even in the extended edition, some of the edits don't make sense. I call attention back to the part where Perry White is asking where Clark Kent always is, and in any other movie, and after that scene, which only exists for Perry White to say, "Where the hell is Clark Kent?" After that scene, they would cut to a shot showing where Clark Kent is. But this movie waits 20 minutes and does 2 other scenes and then gets back to Clark.
See, they were subverting the trope, Scott.
No, they weren't.
It was trope subversion.
So they added a completely superfluous scene just to subvert a trope.
They're being subversive.
I don't think so. I think they're just being bad at their jobs. All right, so I think that's it for DC. I don't know about you guys. I'm still excited to see Suicide Squad, and if it is as much of a mess as it sounds like it is, I'm excited to see exactly why that happened, and if it is just because they were just trying to copy Marvel, or if there's something else wrong with it. It's probably just going to be a script problem, just like all these movies are. But I'm excited for the future of DC. I really am. I want, like, there's this DC Marvel war that has always existed in the comic books that has come into movies now. There was a Rotten Tomatoes, or a Change.org petition to get Rotten Tomatoes shut down because they keep rating DC movies badly, which
Yeah, I saw
which
that.
shows a fundamental misunderstanding of what Rotten Tomatoes is, because they're just an aggregator. They don't write any reviews themselves. They're also owned 30% by Warner Brothers, so that would be Warner trashing their own movies if that was really the case. So
They
it's
have
ridiculous.
to unskew the reviews.
Yeah, it's ridiculous and stupid, but like I want there to be good DC movies and good Marvel movies because I think it makes the film industry and it makes these companies work even harder to make good films. Competition is good, right, capitalist Matt?
That's exactly right, Scott.
All right, so let's move on to our recommendations this week. I think we're going to spend a little extra time on this because we haven't done this in a couple weeks, and I think we all have some stuff we want to talk about. And Daniel, let's start with you and your thing that I think we're going to talk about for a long time.
So, Stranger Things is the best series that has ever been on television. I'm just gonna. That's the thesis statement.
Okay.
Start with that.
What is Stranger Things for those people that somehow haven't heard of it?
I don't think those people exist, but
They do.
in the abstract, if such a person existed, it is a series that is sort of in the kind of Spielberg / Stephen King 80s era about some kids who meet another kid that's sort of like a government project, and also they're monsters. And I mean, thinking about it, trying to describe the story without spoiling anything is sort of difficult because it's so character driven that the actual events, there aren't that many like actual events that happen in the story. They're very like, they're huge. There are huge events that happen, but they're huge, and I don't want to spoil them. So it's a monster story set in the 80s. There.
I mean, we can at least show the setup. The setup is a kid goes missing, and another kid shows up with weird powers, and they go looking for the missing kid, and that's the setup.
Yes.
But
okay.
Yeah, so it's on Netflix. It's 8 episodes long. I'm not going to go so far as to say the best TV show ever, but this was one of the most surprising things of the year for me. It came out of nowhere, and I loved every moment of it.
Yeah, I think one thing worth emphasizing is the 8 episodes part, because, and I don't think it should be a spoiler to say that the plot is a solid plot. It ends, the story ends satisfactorily in 8 episodes. Now apparently they're going to make, like, the next season is going to be related to this season. It's going to be a sequel or something like that. But I think everyone who watches it is pretty much like, nope, this was perfect. This was, you told a complete story in 8 episodes, and it is, perfectly satisfying, and there's no like pacing problems. Every episode is just like moves along very well from the last one. It doesn't have any of the normal like tropes that people find annoying about stories of this nature. Like, as I was watching and I was continually thinking like, oh, they neatly avoided that particular trope. Like, for example, the trope where people don't talk to each other about important things. This is just such a like enjoyable and also pretty scary. Like, I was watching it at one of the first episodes too, before like super weird things even start happening, and like I realized that like all the hair on my body was standing up at a certain point, which is pretty rare for me. I'm not going to say I don't get scared by movies. I actually do get scared by movies, but this was an extreme reaction for me.
Yeah, I think one of the main complaints I'm seeing about it from the handful of people that somehow don't like it, which there are people out there, believe it or not, is that it is a very derivative show. It is very intentionally calling back to, as you said, Daniel, Steven Spielberg 80s, the Amblin type of E.T., Stephen Spielberg stories, Stephen King horror stories, absolutely as well. Just some 80s, even like 80s rom-com tropes with the teenage girls whole plot line. But it's derivative in an interesting way because it is calling back to these things, and it is very intentionally referencing 80s things. But it does it in a smart way. It does it in a fun way. I was born in 1985, so I missed, like, this takes place in 83, I think. So I don't remember really the 80s, but I've seen enough of the films from the period that I can tell, like, this is loving references to those type of movies, and it does so in inventive and fun ways.
Yeah, I mean, I view it as more like a supernatural horror story. Like that's the genre it's in, and it is playing with the tropes of its genre and making references. And to say that's derivative is like saying that any given police procedural or thriller or horror movie or whatever is derivative because it's using the tropes of its genre. It's like, well, I mean, I guess you could find ways in which it's ripping off specific things, but it's using the things that it takes so skillfully that you can't mind that. Like I can't imagine. Like it was funny. I was even noticing certain things in this show that I was like, man, that should annoy me because I have a monster that is just like that in another thing that I wrote. But it doesn't annoy me because I realize that whatever like fictional things I was sort of, reinterpreting to make my monster are probably the same fictional things these guys were reinterpreting to make their monster. And that just means that we love the same things. So I can't be upset about this. I'm actually just glad that they pulled it off.
Yeah, I think the closest comparison that I can make to this, in that this does it well and the comparison does it wrong, is J.J. Abrams' Super 8, a film that's trying to do a very similar thing but fails completely to do it. But like Super 8 is a bad connotation derivative. It is pulling very specific things and using them in the most boring way possible and not really tying it together in any kind of overall. It's not really trying to say anything. Whereas this, I think, like you can tell it's very lovingly made, and you can tell a lot of time was spent on who these characters are and how they interact, and calling back to those things from the 80s. There's the bike chase, and it's not even just the bike chase that ties back to E.T. and Amblin. It's this idea of, as a kid, like a bike is freedom, and like you can go wherever you want now because you're on a bike, and you can outsmart government officials with your bikes. And it's this fun idea, and it worked in E.T. and it works here.
Yeah, I'm remembering Super 8, and I can't actually remember any characters from Super 8. I remember like a bunch of trains getting tossed around, and I liked Super 8. It was like, it was a fun little movie. Nothing too, but like every single character in Stranger Things is like a character. Like I have pictures in my head of what all of these people are and like how they feel about things, which cannot be said of most things that are made today.
Yeah, and that ties, I think, into something we haven't talked about yet, which is the performances, which are all wonderful. Winona Ryder, I think, is really good in her performance, even though it's a little one note at the beginning. She plays the frantic mother of the missing kid, but they really flesh her out.
She's like a trope-aware frantic mother of her missing kid, which I found refreshing.
Yeah.
She was like, I know how this sounds constantly, and that actually makes it a lot more tolerable.
I loved every scene where she was doing something crazy and then would just go to the store that she works at to get more stuff to do her crazy things.
Yeah.
And just tell her boss, just ring me up.
Yeah.
But then the kids, the kids are all, like, finding child actors that can really pull off some of the emotional gravitas that's happening in this story is difficult. And the kids are all really great. The girl that plays 11 in particular is wonderful. And she's got a lot to do in this film. I keep calling it a film because it feels like one long movie, but
it basically is. Like, I think most people actually just sat down and watched this entire series in one sitting. Because I think I did it in two, but that seems to be pretty consistent with what I see on Facebook.
Yeah, and I just like to speak of the effectiveness of these actors in terms of making you feel things. Like, I'm not going to spoil the details of the ending at all, other than to say that, like, I was more heartbroken about this than pretty much any fiction that I can, like, remember since I was an adolescent and was, able to, like, feel things more purely. I don't know if you guys felt the same.
I mean,
No, it was. I agree.
I think it really did stick the landing on the ending. And
Yeah.
we talk about endings so much on this podcast and how often they fail, right? I mean, how especially in a TV show where it's a long form story and you basically have the final 30 minutes of a 8-hour story to wrap everything up. And this show does so well with it. Like the ending is perfect. It really is. And
Yeah.
I watching it, I couldn't think of a way to do it better. It's ambiguous in an enjoyable type of way to where you want more, but like you don't at the same time. Like it wraps everything
Yeah.
up nicely, but there's some hanging strings. But and it's kind of even self-referential in those hanging strings. The D&D game at the very end kind of references
Yeah,
the fact that
yeah.
they're untied, they're things not tied up, but it almost doesn't matter. It's like that's the kind of cool. You're wondering what exactly is going on, but you like coming up with the answer in your head better than having people show you.
Yeah, see, that's in fact, I greatly appreciate it when movies don't do the midichlorians thing, and this absolutely doesn't do that. It's like it lets things be mysteries that are allowed to remain mysteries. There doesn't need to be complete explanation for like all of the mechanics of like the monster and the dark world or whatever. And that's I think that's actually much more effective, and it's the whole like show don't tell
Yeah.
ideology, I think.
Right. I think it's really great that they'll just be like MK Ultra, and like you don't need to explain what that is. They never, they're just like, fine, whatever. It doesn't matter. The details don't matter. This is basically the idea of this trope. I'll just go with it, and it's fine.
Yeah, and at the center of it all is these kids and their friendship, and I love the parts of the friendship that were shown. Like we come into the story with these four guys being best friends, and they play D&D together, and they look at their life as kind of a reflection of the game. And I love the little moments where they let us into what's going on, like when two of the characters are fighting, and when the one guy realizes they're wrong, it's their responsibility to apologize. And when one of you apologizes, the other shakes your hand. That's just what's done. And it makes these characters feel real, and like they're such good friends, and like that helps you like them is how and the fact that they like at first reluctantly let like 11 into the group, but then she kind of earns her spot in the group. Like it's just so enjoyable. It's like it makes me happy.
Yeah. I think this is going to be one of my like favorite things forever, which is it's really nice when that comes along and it's a total surprise.
Yeah. Which is another thing I guess we should talk about. That this was written and directed by the Duffer Brothers, which if you've never heard that name before, it's because they've never done anything else. I think they've directed one feature film that was basically ignored and not picked up and never released. It'll probably end up getting released now, but this is really the first project they've done that people are going to see, and I think that's kind of remarkable because it's really confident in what it wants to be. And for first-time directors doing something this big, being that confident in their direction and in their vision is like exciting, and it makes me want to see what they have to do more of, or what they're going to do next. Which is, I hope, like I don't want them to just keep making more seasons of this. I want them to stretch out and do other stuff.
Season 6 of Stranger Things.
The only thing I could see that could be good with Stranger Things is each season is completely different with different characters, and it's another sci-fi type story, like Twilight Zone type of stuff. Like that's what I would want to see out of this. I don't, as much as I love these characters and would like to revisit the characters, I feel like it can only damage my opinion of the show.
Right. I want a firewall between this season and the next season so that they can't retroactively impact my feelings about this season.
It's fair. So that's Stranger Things. It's on Netflix now. Only 8 episodes. I love that it's 8 episodes. I think it tells the story in a perfect amount of time. And Netflix has kind of been beholden to this 12 or 13 episode thing. And I think that's been to their detriment in some of their other shows. Daredevil in particular is a show that could have been 4 episodes shorter and would have been better for it. So I like that they're willing to say, let's tell the story in the number of episodes we need and not worry about anything else.
Yeah.
That's a good sign. And again, like Netflix existing allows for stuff like this to be made, and that's really exciting. Because what would have picked this up before a streaming service like Netflix?
Right. Yeah, I mean, this would have never been made. It would have, like, these guys would have had to turn it into a movie if they wanted to make this story, and it would have been, it's completely different, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, I think you could do it as a movie, but I think it would hurt the relationships between the characters, which were so important to the story working.
Yeah, or you would have had to leave something out. You couldn't have, I don't know. Yeah.
Because it's already paced like a movie. It's just 8 hours long. So
and that's the really interesting thing that's happening with TV is for a while it was movies were like the novel, and like TV was like short stories, hour-long short stories, and now it's like movies are kind of a novella and TV is long-form storytelling. And that's an interesting place to be, because I think it allows you to do some very different things, and shows that take advantage of TV's long-form storytelling are great for it. Breaking Bad's a good example. This is a great example.
Yeah.
All right, so with that, we spent 15 minutes on one of our recommendations, so let's move on. Matt, what is yours? You can't top Daniel's, but you can try.
No, it's tough. I've been wanting to talk about this for a while because I was really into it a couple weeks ago. I'm still into it now. So that's a lot of staying power for me. But it's a podcast. The Jocko, I think it's called the Jocko Podcast or the Jocko Willink Podcast. It's a podcast run by Jocko Willink, and he was a Navy SEAL commander of SEAL Team 3's Task Unit Bruiser during the Battle of Ramadi, which was sort of known to be the worst fighting during the Iraq War. And so basically this is a kind of a hard guy who's seen a lot of combat and been in a lot of tough situations and pretty much had every possible dangerous thing happen in his life. He's a black belt jiu-jitsu player and just all around badass. And since being a Navy SEAL, he's retired. He's like 44 now, so he's kind of his Navy SEAL days are behind him. He's retired, and he's basically sort of running like a management consulting company to sort of impart like battlefield leadership lessons onto managers, which may sound corny to you, but like a ton of what his podcast is this sort of like him distilling leadership lessons and general like behavioral lessons from memoirs that he reads. So like several of his podcasts are just him reading long excerpts from various Vietnam War memoirs, which are uniformly just the most harrowing things. And on many occasions I've had to like pause them and just like pick them up the next day because I just can't take it anymore while I'm driving, which is where I listen to them. And he really presents it to you in a way that I don't think it's ever been presented to me before. Like, you can't go through life without seeing a few, documentaries or movies about Vietnam or whatever, but this is a guy who's been in combat. He's been in these situations that he's reading about, and he's actually able to both convey the humanity of it, because it's clearly he's not a robot or like a psychopath. It's clearly affecting him, but you're able to see why someone would put themselves through that, because the guy who's reading it to you is the type of person who has put himself through that. It's very kind of enlightening in a lot of levels. Like, first of all, just the leadership lessons he gives are always really great. And in particular, because he's like, yeah, this worked really well for me when we were experiencing friendly fire and I had to do X, Y, and Z. And it's like, yeah, it's really no better credibility than someone who's been in these situations. So anyway, I guess in summary, Navy SEAL, former Navy SEAL who sort of drags you through the mud of a lot of really painful war memoirs, but does it in a way where it brought me at least sort of an angle of understanding that I never had before, which I've found extremely valuable. And also, it's cool when he talks about jiu-jitsu. That's always fun.
That sounds
Yeah.
that sounds really interesting. I'll have to check that out. I never heard of that before. Where did you hear about it?
Probably, Jocko was on the Tim Ferriss podcast, which is another
Okay.
podcast that I've recommended on the show before.
Mm-hmm.
And because Tim Ferriss is always getting like what he refers to as top performers in different fields, and Jocko is definitely an interesting character. So
Cool. I'll check that out, and we'll put a link to that in the show notes as well for those that after they finish listening to our podcast want to listen to a different one. Cool. So I have a couple quick things to recommend. Just some movies I've seen recently. The first being Star Trek Beyond, the latest in the new Trek series. I saw this movie on Sunday, and I liked it a lot, actually. I was a kind of a fan of the first of the new Treks. I thought Into Darkness was trash and terrible, which is no surprise considering Damon Lindelof wrote it, and I hate him. But I think this film captured what the original series was like. It kind of felt like just like a long episode of the original series, and it didn't really focus any particular person. Like it was kind of an ensemble with all the crew, and each crew member got their own moment. It was fun. It was funny. It was a good movie. Like I'm excited for the next Star Trek, and I was not after the mess that was Into Darkness. So they've kind of righted the ship, and I think this movie would be doing better and would be generating more buzz if they hadn't ruined all their goodwill with how terrible Into Darkness was. So, but I would give this one a shot if you haven't seen it.
Yeah, I saw it on Friday, I think, actually, and I thought it was fun. I thought it was very, very action movie-y, more like an action movie than previous Star Treks have been. But
yeah, but that's like the original series is kind of actiony. I mean, they go on adventures on planets and
yeah. I just want my philosophical Jean-Luc Picard back. Okay,
he's gone.
No, I don't. Oh.
The other movie I saw that I want to talk about real quick is a movie called Captain Fantastic. This is starring Viggo Mortensen. It is about a father who is raising his entire family in the middle of the woods, like divorced from all kinds of technology and the rest of civilization. His wife, who was living with them but left because she had mental health issues, dies, and they have to drive back through civilization to go to her funeral. It's a really, really well made small film. Talking about parenting and what you'd be willing to do for your kids and all that. It's just it's just a really good movie. Like I don't know what else to say. It's really well made. It's very heartfelt. It's not going to generate a lot of waves, but it's one of those small made for adults movies that I think most people who see it will like. So that's Captain Fantastic. You probably never even heard of this one, Daniel.
No, I actually saw a trailer for it.
Oh, really?
And I was really interested in it because I haven't seen Viggo Mortensen lately in like hardly anything. Like I think I don't even remember what the last movie I saw him in was, but yeah, it looked good.
Yeah, he gives a really, really great performance here. Really good. And again, there are a lot of child actors in this film that do a really good job too. So like the theme of our podcast today is good child actors. Yeah. So that's Captain Fantastic. It's probably going to be in your local art house theater, or it'll probably be on video on demand pretty soon. It's one of those movies that I think is going to be on VOD after not too long. But you should check it out. All right, so I think that's all we had for this week. I don't think we have any plans at all for next week. But Daniel, thank you so much for joining us. Sorry I insulted your movie again.
It's okay. Someday.
We will never agree. We will never agree on the DC movies. But that's okay.
Yeah, that's okay. You're entitled to your wrong opinion.
Yeah. Thanks for coming. And you can. Do you have a place where you can be found?
Yes, the Berkeley Science Review blog.
Yeah, that's right. Your blog.
Yes.
So we will put that in the show notes. I think Matt had to step away, but we will put his Twitter handle in the show notes. And mine is @ScottDaly85. or you can follow the Daily Planet at dailyplanetfilms.com. You can see all of our writing and all of our other podcast episodes at dailyplanetfilms.com. And if you want to help support this podcast and other things we do at Daily Planet Films, you can support us on Patreon. That's patreon.com/dailyplanetfilms. So that's all we have for this week. Thanks again, Daniel, and we will see you next week.